Anecdotes for success. Level up with truth, meaning, trade-offs, perspective.
All right, Matt. Today's one of these weeks where nobody wanted to talk to us.
I would. My guess is too many people wanted to talk to us. We just had to, just us today.
Yeah, listen, it's part of the consistency of the process. We're both so busy. I mean, so many people are busy. I don't mean that, but some weeks it's a little easier just to share our
Oh,
thoughts because we enjoy it.
yeah, no, it is, and I love I've enjoyed every guest we had, and I say that with 100% honesty for their own reasons, of course. But I also enjoy our discussions together. And let's face it, this is how we got this idea got created was our conversations and things like that. And we obviously have our own opinions and thoughts on things as well. So I always enjoy these conversations also. And by the way, congrats on the softball success your team has had recently. So that's outstanding. You got to be proud of them.
I am. They're, I mean, stuff we talk about. They've gone through a lot of adversity to start the year.
Yeah,
They're trusting the process, and they're believing, and it's going to be fun. There's no guarantees what'll happen, but we're going to be a tough out. That's what's fun. And
it's part of the adventure, right?
I think so. And the neatest thing is I think they believe that it is just a game. It doesn't mean you have to like it when you lose, but you can take all these skills and go with it. And that's a great segue because you didn't even know what we're talking about.
No.
So I'm going to say it, and then you're going to start with your thoughts. If you need some clarification, I'll be happy to do it. But I hear a lot of people say, "How do you deal with the noise in life?" There's a lot of noise in life. Like, how do you separate what you have to do, and then basically all the crap out there? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question because it's a key to success, right? In whatever you do, and for me, and this comes from my father. Um, and I was having a conversation with a friend of ours recently, and I'm going to get aside a little bit here, but I brought up my father just briefly. I mentioned my comment, and he goes, "Oh, and he'll hear this, and he's probably cringing already." But he said, "Oh, I've never heard you talk much about your dad." And as you know, Paul, my dad is my hero, and I mean, and I go, well, that's because, and I started to talk, Paul, and I just lost it. I just broke down, and I appreciate him talking with me about it, and I got to kind of get out a lot of things off my chest, and I don't want to do that right now. That's why I'm laughing. I'm not going to do that right now. But it's funny because when he said, "Oh, I don't," I've heard you talk about your father before. I'm thinking, my God, I was thinking a couple things. Number one, oh my God, my dad's like, I think about my dad constantly. My dad was just the biggest influence in my life, and he's passed away, as you well know. But, and then I felt shame, Paul. I was like, oh my God, how does someone who I know pretty well and who listens to us talk on this not know my feelings about my father? What a letdown! From you know what I mean? Like I felt like how could I've? And then I was like, man, I think I'm burying it in some way. You know what I mean? So we'll have to do a podcast. We'll have to get a psychiatrist or psychologist on with some time, Paul, and they can open me up about this topic. But I won't get into it now. But anyway, that I'm going to talk about my father briefly. My dad was the one who said to me, control what you can control, Matt. Control what you can control. Everything else is just it's not worth it. Don't worry about it. And it's weird, don't you think that everyone's heard that before, right? Everyone's heard that. My dad didn't invent that. He was right telling me that and teaching me it. But why did it work for me, right? What if we've all heard it? We've all heard it. Was it because I respected him so much? Was it because he told me that a number of times and it got through? I don't know the answer. I have no idea. I'm just saying I find that interesting as well. But for me, I really believe in controlling what I can control. Doesn't mean I don't have moments. Doesn't mean I don't have sleepless nights or those worries. Because I do, but not as much as I probably used to. Certainly not as much as I used to. Probably not as much as a lot of people, because I believe wholeheartedly in controlling what I can control. And then I've had success in it, right? A lot of thing is like, you're teaching your players to, I don't know, hit a change up or whatever it is. It's like, well, once you start hitting a few change ups pretty hard, all of a sudden you've got you know what you're supposed to do, but till you start hitting it hard, now you know what you're supposed to do, and now you have the confidence of actually performing, right? And I think that's helped me as well. But I really believe in controlling what I can control. I live that way. I live controlling what I can control for the most part. And for me, that's number one. And number two, I know what my priorities are in life, Paul. I know who matters to me. I know what matters to me. It's my wife, it's my daughter, it's my mother and my brothers, my immediate family. It's my employees in my work kind of world. It's my friends like yourself. But it's a small group all in all. I don't care what other people think. I don't care about that outside noise. I'm great at filtering it out, because I know it doesn't. Those aren't the people who are going to, matter to me. Not that those people don't matter in their own right, but I can't worry about everyone. So I decide what's important to me. I control what I can control within that group or within those things that are important to me, and by doing that and having success with it, I think it just breeds more and more success with it. So that's something I would say, frankly, I'm really good at. I hear other people talk about, oh, I worry about what other people think. And if I fail, what other people are going to say, or, what people say about me on social media or whatever. And I can't relate to that, because I don't think that way.
I was writing this down as you said it. Too many people think too much about what others think. And my superpower to get rid of the noise is all the stuff you said that I'm going to touch base on in a minute. But people really don't think about you as much as you think they do.
You said this in one of your classes once, Paul, and I was like, he's spot on. That's exactly it. They don't think about you the way you think they think about you, right? That's a good way to start, the way to say it?
Yeah. So by controlling what you can control, it's the 6 inches or 8 inches, 4 inches, whatever it is between your ears. It differs for people. And that's the mindset you have to have. And then if they do think of you, who cares? And I know people that do well on social media, and they get, I don't know, 1,000 comments, and then 5 of them are bad, and that's all they think about. Like,
well, isn't that biological? Isn't it? It's like we're wired. We've talked about this before, but it's another great example. We're wired for the negative, so that we don't get eaten by the mountain lion or bit by the snake or whatever the threat to us happens to be. So we're wired to that, and so that we're so sensitive to it.
Yeah, it really is. So I think, but like any skill, you can practice not worrying what other people think, right?
What do you tell your students or younger, because you work with younger people, high school kids all the time, every day? And I assume that they're very much more susceptible to some of those things, especially with social media. Like, what do you think? What do you see?
Yeah, I talked to them a lot about it, and it's funny. When we interview for my program, we ask kids, what would you do if you could go way back to 9th grade and start over again? Now, they're only juniors when we interview them. But
That's a good
80,
question.
I mean, I don't know if it's 80%, I'm making that set up, but almost all of them say, I wish I wouldn't worry about what other people think.
Wow.
So, the type of student I get by 11th grade's already started reflecting on that a little.
Yeah.
But boy, you come out of middle school crashing into 9th grade and you're worrying about everything but yourself, right?
Gosh, absolutely. I remember back in those days.
Yeah, it's a skill. I remember, I'm gonna birdwalk for a minute. I remember I was sitting in 8th grade English class, and my friend goes, "Watch, I'm gonna get these 2 kids to fight at the end of class." Now, this is in the 80s, right? So he passes one kid a note pretending it's from the kid behind him. And then the kid didn't do anything. So he started with the other kid and passed him a note. And eventually they got engaged, writing notes back to each other, and went outside and fought. And if that's not emphasis of worrying about what other people think, it was brilliant. Crazy, stupid, but that's the middle school mindset. Now, of course, everybody just went back to class, but today there'd be hearings and parents would get involved and both parties would blame each other and there'd be zero tolerance, right? So how do you transform it? I think it's just the phase in your life. One thing, to actually get back to your question, I tell the kids a key way to go about this is, what are your priorities? And if people don't fit your priorities, it doesn't mean you have to like them or not like them, but you can just be neutral to other people, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how you transfer it. You have goals and priorities. I saw a thing the other day where a gentleman said people can come into your life just like the seasons do. So maybe you've got a summer friend, maybe you've got a school friend, maybe you're great friends, but by 12th grade or the end of college, you've drifted your separate ways. And
Yep.
I think it goes as much with relationships. That's why I think separations and divorce happens. People just drift apart, right? I mean,
Yeah.
not being a counselor of any type, I'm qualified. Uh, but I think you can just leave people alone. So don't think about them. They're not thinking about you, and have priorities and goals that are so strong to you. You just start associating yourself with your circle, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and I think it helps too, Paul, when you know who you are in terms of your values, which isn't easy when you're young. That's one of the problems. But more importantly than that, when you know what are you focused on? What are you trying to accomplish? And for me in high school, it was like basketball. All I wanted to do was play basketball, right? Maybe for you it was golf or whatever,
Yeah.
and that was great. Those were wonderful times. But I didn't spend any time thinking about what people thought of me, because I've always had other goals. I've always had things I had to do, and those take a tremendous. If you're doing it right, they take a tremendous amount of effort. And so to have the additional time and effort spent in whether my next door neighbor likes me or not, or whether anyone does, it doesn't matter who it is, whether someone likes me or not, it's frankly, Paul, it's somewhat narcissistic to think that I'm that important, that outside of whether my garbage blows in my neighbor's yard, which I can understand him not liking that, but to think that they're in there right now worrying about what I'm doing and is it wouldn't cross my mind. I mean, they've got their own lives to lead. I'm sure what Matt's doing right now or this week is never coming up, and I hope it doesn't, because if it does, then they've lost focus on the important things in their life, because it's not me. And I think it's tremendously narcissistic, the people who are so worried about, well, what other people think about them. And the answer is, they don't think anything about you, most likely. If you run across their path in some way, if my garbage blows in their yard, yeah. If my dog gets out and runs in their yard, yeah. Beyond those, if I see them at the grocery store or something, we'll have a nice conversation. But beyond that, people aren't thinking about you. And if you spending a lot of time thinking they are, you should spend less time thinking they are, more time thinking about what you're trying to accomplish in life.
Yeah, I just wrote this down. Basically, worry is the absence of doing, right? It's the absence of priorities, goals. So if you're worrying about everything, and I know people that say, "Oh, I just love gossip." Well, yeah, you do, because you're not doing anything productive. So that's your
Great point.
productivity.
Great point.
And I have, like, how come you don't worry about that? Or how come you're not holding a grudge against this person? It's like, I don't have time.
Right.
Like, there's hardly enough hours in the day. I hit the ground running. I hit snooze twice today. I didn't use Mel Robbins method, and I wake
Yeah.
up I wake up
Like
10, 15
Craig
minutes
was talking
later.
about, right?
Yeah, and I feel like I'm behind all day now,
Yeah. It's funny. You just said, what was it? Worries the absence of doing.
Yeah, I'm sure someone smarter than me said that once, but I feel like I just made that up.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm sure someone smarter than you said it, but the fact that I've never heard that before, I think that's fantastic. That's trademark that or copyright it, whatever. Whether
Putting a little C
do.
next to it. Putting a little C next to it.
Yeah, let's get some T-shirts made up. I love it. Um,
Timestamping right now, May 10th,
May 10th.
2:48. That's mine.
Let's Google that. Again, we don't have our fact checker. Let's Google, see if that anyone's ever said that. But to your point, what that made me think of, Paul, when I worry at night when I wake up, I'll wake up in the middle of the night. I've got a small bladder, so I got to use a bathroom, and then I lay back down to go back to sleep, and that's when I worry. And the reason is, Paul, I can't really do anything at that point, right? 2 o'clock in the morning, my wife's asleep, everyone's asleep. I don't have the capacity. I do. I can. I've learned to do this, but that's when I always have my anxious moments when I can't take action of some sort. When I wake up, all that gets set aside because I can go do. I can put in the action. Something pops into my head. Oh boy, that's a liability, or that's a potential problem, or that's something something I've left undone. Now I can go do it, finish it, and it's over with. But I can in the middle of the night, which is one reason I started putting my laptop in my room at night, because I'll wake up and I'll have these worry moments and I can grab it, and I don't do it a lot anymore. But now and again I have to come downstairs or going with my laptop in my room and get things done. But I love that. Worrying is the opposite of doing, Paul. I mean,
the absence. Come
the
on, get my
absence
quote
of
right.
doing. Thank you. Even better. Absence.
Now
is
I'm
way
already
better.
being misquoted. I know what it's like to be famous now.
Yeah,
Oh,
let me
man.
run with this, and there's no telling what it's going to end up with. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's a profound thing to say.
Yeah. One of my favorite, well, I shouldn't say one of my favorite movies. One movie that I like was called For the Love of the Game with Kevin Costner. Did you ever see
Okay.
that?
Long time ago, right?
Yeah, he's a baseball pitcher.
Yep.
Deliberating whether he should retire. And they have him playing a game as a Detroit Tiger in Yankee Stadium, and the whole movie's flashbacks to all the things in his life and all the worry. And then he'd be thinking, then all of a sudden he'd realize he's back at the game pitching, and he'd be like, clear the mechanism. And just focus on the right pitch. But later on in the game, he realizes he's throwing a perfect game. So between all his reminiscing and all his worry, all of a sudden he couldn't clear the noise. Because he had too much going on in here instead of just laser-like focus. And I explain that to the kids. I show them the clip, and I still don't think they like it or understand it after I show them it. But I'll use the phrase "clear the mechanism" a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, I got a lot of stuff to do, and I've got to mow the lawn, pay bills, and go to practice. And sometimes you have to clear the mechanism and just focus on the task right at hand. My daughter Allie uses the phrase "know where your feet are." Like when she gets too busy, she's like, "Know where your feet are." Like, you stay grounded right in this moment. Appreciate your house or the moment or even the job you're doing, and know where your feet are. So I think people need to come up with a phrase, something that brings them back to what they're doing, and that's how you get rid of the noise.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and it reminds me of, and I think it's the same thing. I think of it in sports, basketball, or is what I think of, but being in the zone, right? And they talk about getting in the zone, being in the zone, and any description I've ever heard from, one of those mega athletes like a Michael Jordan or whoever, it's like when they're in the zone, it's about being in the moment and not having that noise, clearing that mechanism, like you said, or knowing where your feet are, or whatever way you want to put it. But that's where ultimately, that's where you get your most productivity. That's where you get your best work done, right? You're in the moment, and that's hard because we are human beings, and there's other things to think about and worry about, and it's easy to fall. It's easy to drift, right? We do it all. That's meditation, right? It's trying to be in that moment.
Yeah. Now it's funny, as much as just being present in the moment is, I'm going to reverse it a little. I've used this with some of my players this year. I just thought of it recently. There's still situations that are pressure packed, like any game, event, maybe a job interview. You have that moment where the next thing you do, the next action you take, or next phrase you say can make or break you, right?
Yeah. What do you tell your athletes on that?
I've been doing this with pitchers lately. you can't tell a pitcher to throw strikes. Like you can't say the strike word. They're trying to throw a strike. You say,
Okay, so what do you
you
say?
know, best pitch, uh, found the zone. But lately, what I've been saying to one is best memory. So like the pitcher will go back into a time where when did I just dominate on the mound? What's the most memorable moment I have where I just struck somebody out or
Okay.
threw that pitch? And now you bring that memory into your head, and that seems to lighten them up and loosen them up a little.
Huh.
So it's almost not being in the moment, it's about being in a past moment. And maybe that's dangerous because you're not supposed to live in the past, but boy, memories like manifestation's great and things like that are powerful. Why not visualize a happy
So
place where you once
so a
were?
past moment of success. So,
Yes.
right. Is it success similar to for instance, the sport you're in, or or I'm curious. I've never
Yeah.
heard this before. It makes sense, and I don't know if you've heard sports psychologists talk about it or whatever. I just wonder it'd be like, let's say we're talking softball pitching. Would it be past moment of pitching success, or what about a past moment of basketball success, or don't you know?
No, I don't know. I don't get specific what they want to think about because it's
Okay,
their moment.
okay,
But
okay, cool.
I'm gonna ask. I'm assuming it's a softball moment, but
I'd like to know. I'd like to know.
I'll find out. And I started doing this last year when I don't practice golf anymore. I'm like Allen Iverson, like practice. You talking about practice? Uh, but
I
I
didn't
know
know
a
you
lot
were
of my
allowed
friends
to.
are like, yeah, a lot of my friends are like, oh, I don't play golf like I used to. Oh, it's not like the old days when I could practice all the time. And you're filling yourself with this self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm stronger than I was when I was younger. I hit the ball further than I was. So it dawned on me last year, why can't I play better?
Yeah.
So when I play courses I played as a kid, I think about the time I drove that green in two or I made the 50-foot putt. And when I walk around, you might see a smile on my face because I'm just like, man, there's a lot of good times on this course. I want to
Yeah.
have more. And
Right.
all of a sudden, you don't think about all the stuff that brings you down when you're older. I mean, yeah, time's going to win in the end, right?
Yeah. You
But
know, Paul, I just got done playing 9 holes, and I had a birdie and two pars, which not bad for me, especially in early May when I've only
and
been out twice.
all Eagles after that.
Right. And the rest for Eagles. I'm not interested in discussing the other holes. Okay.
No, when you talk about noise and focus, sometimes I'll have students say, "You're just too positive." Like things go wrong, and I'm like, I know they go wrong.
Of
I have a
course.
perfect track record of getting through all the hard times. So just because
Yeah.
I'm positive doesn't mean we'll win, or just because I'm positive doesn't mean I'll make the putt. But what's the other option?
Right.
Like
Right.
I'm not talented or good enough to think negative and win. I have to at least think positive to even have a sliver of a chance to win.
Yeah, yeah, I love what because you've said that. I've heard you say that before. Like I got a perfect record of getting through the negative things, and I never looked at it in those terms before I heard you said it. But that's kind of a lot of how I think. Like well, I'm just gonna keep going forward and doing things that I like, and whether it's building businesses or investing or whatever it is, it's like, well, aren't you afraid to fail? And I'm like, am I afraid to fail? No, I failed a lot. It's part of what I do. I just get through it. Like you said, I just have gotten through it all the time. Like, and it never occurred to me that that should make me stop doing it. You know what I mean? It's never occurred to me that that was meant it was the end. It's like, have I ever had a bad drive or putt or whatever? Oh my God, yeah, all the time. Never occurred to me I should stop playing though. Um, and it's the same way for me. It's not that I'm like this overly optimistic person. It's just, well, I don't know what the alternative is. I gotta just keep going, and it's not as painful to fail as some people might think it is.
Now, and another sports analogy. I'm a Celtics fan. My daughter might be the only kid I know that actually watches the NBA still. So we were FaceTiming last night and the Celtics were on. They're in the semis, I think it
Yep.
is,
My
and they're playing
Sixers.
the
I'm a Sixers
Sixers.
fan.
Oh, that's right. So last night they're getting shellacked. And I go to my daughter, isn't it funny? All the sports people get on now and say this guy stinks or this guy can't handle the pressure. Like their lives are over. You know who they're not talking about? The team's not playing.
Right. True.
So like, even though the Celtics may lose the series, all right, I don't put that much into it. It's sports entertainment to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
enjoy it. I'm like,
Yep.
they talk to these guys like they're failures. And yeah, one team's gonna fail because it's a zero-sum game, like we've
Right.
talked
We've
about.
talked about. Yep.
But they've got next year, and they didn't fail as hard as the other teams, not to that point. It just blows my mind how well people make a career putting other people putting it on the line under a microscope and say, "You stink, you're terrible, you're a failure." I don't get it. I hope that makes sense what I was trying to say. It just blows my
Yeah,
mind.
it does, and I think maybe that leads to this binary feel of if my business doesn't succeed right away, I've failed. If I tried, I want to be a real estate investor, and you buy that first house and you go to flip it, let's say, and instead of making 80 grand, you lose 10 grand, and like, oh, I guess I'm no good at this. I guess I'll stop, as opposed to, oh, I missed that free throw. And we lost the game. It's like, okay, but there's another game. There's another game tomorrow or next week or next season. Just like there's another property next month or next year, whatever you want to do. Like, these don't stop. They never end. You don't the failures and the quitting. And again, it's not as profound as your word is the absence of doing, but and I obviously didn't make that up, but it's absolutely true. It's like, don't quit, you won't fail. I mean, you just
Right.
keep going, and I think all these successful people that I've either read about, Paul, or I've had the privilege of being around, just successful people, successful, like go getting, hard work, and no excuse, all accountability, those types of people. Not the woe is me, it's not my falters. Those people I have no interest in. It's a accountability. I'm getting it done one way or another. They all have that in common. It's like, yeah, I just don't stop. Did I get to my level of like success as quickly as I wanted to? In most cases, the answer is nope. But they just kept going, and that's one of there's a few common denominators for successful people, and that's one of them. It's like they're successful because they didn't stop, not because they had the answer day one.
So I think we solved the problem. You ready? I'm using my notes to summarize in one sentence what we just took 30 minutes to talk about.
Got it. Cool.
How to remove the noise. You remove the noise by controlling what you can control, by transferring it through priorities, taking action, and keep going.
I like it.
And worry is the absence of doing.
With that, I was gonna say we got that. That's got to stay somewhere. We got to look that one up.
All right, perfect. Matt, this was great. I can't tell you or the viewers who our guest is next week, but it's going to be awesome.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be huge.
All right.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Thanks, Matt. See ya.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.